notebooks, ladies and gentlemen. I agree. Awesome. Fantastic. Notebooks up. Happening today and tomorrow. I'll make sure we're clear on all of it. Remember, you have paper due tonight at midnight. That is 15 hours from right now, so make sure you get that paper submitted on turnitin.com before the stroke of midnight tonight. Now, we have current events. Finally, today, there are two pictures up there on the screen. Anyone tell me who either of those people are? Maybe one. That is Barbara Bush there on the left. First hour said Barbara Clinton, so your answer is better. Barbara Bush is, of course, the wife of George H.W. Bush, the 41st president, and mother of the 43rd president, George W. Bush. And why is she in the news?
She died.
She died at the age of like 92. Which is pretty good. Anyone tell me who is on the right, though?
Is that your one?
Fidel Castro is so close, and yet not quite. This is his brother. This is Raul Castro on the right. Pretty close. Now, between them, Fidel and Raul, there's been a Castro in charge of Cuba for the last 60 years. It's absolutely crazy. One of the two of them in charge for 60 years, this dictatorship down in Cuba. And that all ends this month because Raul Castro is stepping down. Now, he's appointed another dictator, so it's not like a lot's changing, but it is the first non-Castro to rule over this country in a very long time. We'll get back to Cuba later today. So first off, remember, papers due tonight. Secondly, you guys have to meet in the library tomorrow. So go directly there tomorrow. We're doing something else. It won't be as fun as a DBQ. I know, that was exciting, but it's like a one-day activity. We'll do in the library, meet there right away. All right, news, here we go. First story is about Syria. Syria is showing up in the news again. What happened there last week? Do you remember? Yes, there were gas attacks, which sounds like that's what happened here downstairs on the first floor, right?
What?
The sewage pipe burst. And this is like the science area? Is that what it is? So, slightly more deadly is the Syria attacks, in which the government gassed many of its own people, mostly rebels, in this attack last week. Now, America generally doesn't let that slide. The world has rules against chemical weapons being used. And for that reason, something interesting happened. Now, Trump in the past has been very against going into Syria. When Obama was president, he said that we should not be in there. It was a waste of money and of weapons, and we should find other places to spend our time. Now, of course, as a surprise, what happened over the weekend? What did Donald Trump do? He bombed Syria. Yeah, we launched major airstrikes against Syrian targets on Friday last week. How'd they go? They, as Donald Trump said, were very precise. They hit all of their targets. There was a slight problem, though, which is that Donald Trump had, of course, been tweeting that he was going to be attacking Syria last week. As a result, what did the Syrian government do? How do they prepare? They just moved. Right. So it turns out that the reports from the actual attacks have shown that not a single airplane or airfield or chemical weapons base was actually hit by the attack. Which cost upwards of $400 billion. So that's unfortunate. But also, what was interesting is that the attack, in the past, Trump had criticized Obama for attacking Syria without congressional approval. As we learned from our DBQ yesterday, we need Congress to declare war before we start major military action. Can a president just launch airstrikes whenever he wants? Sort of, yeah. It seems like presidents have done that in the past, but whether they should be allowed to is a totally different story. Did Trump ask for Congress's approval this time? No, he did not. So again, there is that big question of executive power versus legislative power. Who is allowed to do what? This did not make Vladimir Putin happy, by the way. Remember that Russia is the biggest ally of Syria. They said don't launch those nukes. We did so anyway, and here we are. But I want to end this story with this specific tweet right here. The last thing Trump said about it was how well the attack went. He thanked France and Britain, who had helped us in the attack, and all those things are true. But he ended this tweet with two words, two very famous words. Anyone know what they are? That wouldn't make sense. But no, the last two words of his tweet, very good, are mission accomplished. Now, I don't know if that means anything to you specifically, but especially to people that follow history, this is a pretty big deal, because the last time a president said mission accomplished was this moment right here. George W. Bush, on an aircraft carrier, declared essentially that the major war was over in Iraq. The reason this is a big deal is because he said this 3 months into the Iraq War. Anyone know how long the Iraq War lasted?
It's still going on.
It lasted about 12 years, right? So the problem with mission accomplished in general is it's kind of like a jinx, right? Like you say, the war is almost over, and then it isn't. So to say so about Syria, like obviously it's fine, Trump can say what he wants, but it does seem to be tempting fate a little bit. You can actually see this is the casualties that happened in the Iraq War. Here's where Bush said mission accomplished, and here's what happened afterward. So there is this question of, whether we should be using that particular phrase or not. I guess we'll find out. We'll see. Second story for you is about this man right here, James Comey, who was the former director of the FBI. Why is he the former director? Got fired by the president. Now, he was fired by the president for starting a Russian investigation of collusion. But he's been kind of all over the place the last year or so. Specifically, Comey has said that Trump asked him for a pledge of loyalty. He asked the FBI to be loyal to him, which is something the FBI doesn't do, and that he thought that his firing was in retaliation for doing so. Now, the FBI in general is independent from politics. They serve 10-year terms, so they overlap multiple presidents, and Comey's firing was extremely unusual. FBI directors don't get fired early on in their term. It just doesn't happen. It was so unusual that when it happened last year, people compared it to Watergate, to when Nixon was firing people left and right as they closed in on him for the Watergate scandal. And it was I guess it was such a big deal, this was crazy, which is that the Nixon Library actually sent out a tweet and said, whoa, just so you know, Nixon never actually fired the FBI director. Like, Nixon did a bunch of things, but he never went that far. So it's weird when, even the Nixon Library is like, slow down, hold on, this is what actually happened. Now, Donald Trump, after that, said that Comey was lying, and that he better hope there were no tapes of his conversations in the White House, which seems to imply that Donald Trump is secretly taping things that happen inside the White House. That is something that Nixon did. And if that's true, we can find out what's on those tapes. Congress can ask to see those tapes, and Trump would have to hand them over. And this was all so crazy that when it happened, one of the sources in the White House was quoted as saying this right here: who cares, nothing matters, no one knows anything, everything sucks. So that's great, right? When the White House is making these kind of comments, things are unusual. It's an unusual time that we live in, right? All of this, why am I bringing this up? Because Comey released his book Tuesday. Now, this is the first time a high government official has released a book since Donald Trump took office, so it is highly anticipated. It was #1 on the Amazon bestseller list for weeks coming up. I bought a copy on Tuesday. I started reading it. I haven't gotten to the Trump stuff yet, but it is pretty interesting. And Comey himself has been all over the news talking, giving interviews, now that he can finally officially talk about what happened between him and the president. So I thought I would show you a little bit of one of those interviews. On Monday, Comey sat down with ABC News to talk about his time in the White House. I'm just going to show you about 3 minutes, but I thought it was pretty interesting. Let's take a look.
January 6, 2017, Trump Tower. FBI Director James Comey sent to meet President-elect Donald Trump for the first time.
As you headed into Trump Tower that day, were you nervous?
Yes.
Comey was with a group of intelligence agency heads, briefing Trump and his top aides on how the Russians interfered in our election.
President-elect Trump's first question was to confirm that it had no impact on the election. And then the conversation, to my surprise, moved into a PR conversation about how the Trump team would position this and what they could say about this. They actually started talking about drafting a press release with us still sitting there. And the reason that was so striking to me is that that's just not done. That the intelligence community does intelligence, the White House does PR and spin.
You also said you were struck by what they didn't ask.
Very much. No one, to my recollection, asked, so what's coming next from the Russians? How might we stop it? What's the future look like? It was all, what can we say about what they did and how it affects the election that we just had?
Comey then asked to meet alone with Trump, to warn him about that now infamous Steele dossier, unverified information on Trump's ties to Russia, including the allegations of Trump's encounters with prostitutes in Moscow.
I'm about to meet with a...
Okay, I should probably explain this real quick. So the Steele dossier it's unverified, but it's this British spy who essentially said that when Donald Trump was in Moscow, he was there for the Miss Universe pageant a few years ago, that he went into his hotel room with 2 Russian prostitutes, and that the Russian government secretly filmed that encounter and has been using it to blackmail Donald Trump. Now this, I haven't brought this up because it's not verified, but it essentially was, I guess it was enough of a threat that the FBI decided to let Trump know that this information was out there, and that it might be true. And that's what he's talking about here.
Person who doesn't know me has just been elected President of the United States. By all accounts, and from my watching him during the campaign, could be volatile. And I'm about to talk to him about allegations that he was involved with prostitutes in Moscow and that the Russians taped it and have leverage over him.
Was there any choice there? Why, if this was salacious, and this particular part of the dossier unverified, still unverified, by the way?
Yes. So far as when I got fired, it was unverified.
Did you tell him that the Steele dossier had been financed by his political opponents?
No, I didn't even think I used the term Steele dossier. I just talked about additional material
But did he have a right to know that?
that had been financed by his political opponents. I don't know the answer to that. It wasn't necessary for my goal, which was to alert him that we had this information.
How graphic did you get?
I think as graphic as I needed to be, and I started to tell him about the allegation was that he had been involved with prostitutes in a hotel in Moscow in 2013 during a visit for the Miss Universe pageant, and that the Russians had filmed the episode. And he interrupted very defensively and started talking about it. Do I look like a guy who needs hookers? And I assumed he was asking that rhetorically. I didn't answer that, and I just moved on and explained, sir, I'm not saying that we credit this. I'm not saying we believe it. We just thought it very important that you know.
Did you tell him you thought it wasn't true, or you didn't know if it was true or not?
I never said I don't believe it, because I couldn't say one way or another.
How weird was that briefing?
Really weird. It was almost an out-of-body experience for me.
But you have to imagine, that's got to be a weird day, right? Like, it's your first day meeting the new president, and you have to tell him that there's allegations he might have met with Russian prostitutes in a hotel, and then the president of the United States asks you, do I look like a man who needs hookers? That's just a strange situation right there. But that is the reality that we are living in. That seems to be the life that we have. So, let's keep going. Okay, third, final story for today is about Michael Cohen. Do you remember who this man is? He is. He is Donald Trump's lawyer. He's the personal lawyer where they took all of his stuff. The search warrant happened. And so Cohen is currently, facing actual charges for, witness tampering, for doing stuff without Donald Trump's permission, if that in fact is true. He was ordered to show up Monday at trial, and he didn't show up, actually. He did not go to trial on his first day, and instead was photographed having cigars with his friends outside. So he may not, think this is as serious as the rest of us do. But what's interesting is that Cohen only has 3 clients. We know already that his first client is who? Donald Trump, specifically that he spent money to cover up his affair with Stormy Daniels and possibly other women. His second client is the head of the Republican National Convention, and apparently he paid $1.6 million to a Playboy playmate, who this man had an affair on his wife in and eventually impregnated. That's the second client that he had, and because those two were so, serious and people want to hear about it, they're also pretty curious as to who his third client is, and that, in fact, for a while was a mystery. Now, because of this, the judge ordered him to turn over that information. Attorney-client privilege does not protect who your client is. You have to go over the name of that client, and that's when Cohen did something pretty surprising last week, which is that he refused to give that information over. He said, no, I'm not going to tell you who my third client is. And he said if I did, it would be extremely embarrassing to that client. And at that point, what could the judge do? If you refuse a judge's order, what happens to you? Yeah, it is called contempt of court, and you go to prison for that. Now, if that were to happen, Donald Trump, can he do anything about that? What could he do? He could pardon Michael Cohen from that charge of contempt of court. And in fact, this really could happen. The problem is that if you're pardoned from that one charge of contempt, the judge can just charge you again the next time you don't hand it over. And every time the judge says, give me the name, and he says no, you get another contempt charge. If Trump pardons that one, we hit him again, and then again, and And again, you can keep putting this charge on there no matter how many times Trump pardons Cohen for doing so. Well, if we had to do this or not is irrelevant because the name leaked out anyway, and it turned out the third client is who? Yeah, it is the biggest star on Fox News, a man named Sean Hannity. Now, we do not know what the nature of their relationship is so far, but I will say this probably doesn't look good for Hannity because remember, if Cohen has 3 clients, and for the first client he was hiding an affair, and for the second client he was hiding an affair, I'm not saying what Sean Hannity was doing, but I'm just saying that if I was Mrs. Hannity, I would be concerned at this point, right? So we'll see what happens. This is all kind of breaking in the last couple of days. But there you go. So currently, right now, Donald Trump also in the last day has sued the federal government for taking Michael Cohen's stuff. So right now, Donald Trump, President of the United States, is suing the U.S. government. His lawyer is being sued by the U.S. government, and he has 19 women also suing him for sexual harassment claims. And here we are, ladies and gentlemen, in 2018. So, we'll find out what happens next week. I guess this is my favorite show on television, real life. All right, let's get into it.